This is the Russian Dynamite, Masha Slamovich.
Becca here.
This is not America's Sweetheart, Davian.
It's Billy Starks. And
the super fly guy, Trayvon Jordan.
This is the fly side flyer, Jalen Brandon.
Hardcore Princess, Jules Malone.
Hi there, this is the Bubblegum Princess, Alexia Nicole.
This is the Brazilian Wonder Woman, Christy James.
This is the baddest black belt, Chennai Kai.
This is Kid Bandit.
The smash hit Joel Bateman.
This is Robin Renegade.
Cody Hawk.
Brutal Bob Evans. And you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment, one of my favorite podcasts in the whole wide world.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Bryan Anderson. I'm the founder of WrestleMap.com, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the show. It's Wrestling with Entertainment, the only audio experience on the web today. The trusted choice for interviewing all your favorite wrestlers every Tuesday and Wednesday on YouTube and CastBox for 300 interviews. I'm, of course, your host, James J., and it's a great day for wrestling because we are wrestling with the founder of WrestleMap, Bryan Anderson.
Hello, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Happy to be here and happy to talk with you guys about WrestleMap and wrestling around the world, and I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. I've been actually looking very much forward to this interview because of the diversity of WrestleMap.
Oh, great, yeah.
Can you kind of tell us, first of all, could you tell us where we can find you on social media and if there's anything you have coming up?
Yeah, for sure. So on social media, I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Really, it's all WrestleMap, WRESTLEMAP. Just on all those platforms. You know, Facebook is facebook.com/WrestleMap. Instagram and X are both at WrestleMap. Also YouTube, same there, youtube.com/@WrestleMap. I'm always looking to put out some stuff. You know, right now it's been a little slower for me. You know, I'm just trying to keep up with some things because I have some other bigger projects I'm working on. So there hasn't been as many, you know, small news pieces, but they are, you know, I am trying to include them, and the bigger projects are coming. I'll have a match coming from Pro Wrestling Africa soon to my YouTube. A full event from Pro Wrestling Africa too, but there's been some hang-ups on that one. I'm still working to get that produced, but it is coming. Other than that, you know, just some stories. I have one thing that I have in the pipeline is I'm working on history of pro wrestling in Buffalo, New York, where I'm from. I want to make that into like a podcast, a regular podcast. I don't think I can do it weekly just because there's so much research that I'm putting into it. But so that at least the first episode should be coming pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that. And it'll really be a history of like U.S. pro wrestling to an extent too, because I'm going to start all the way back in 1900. So there's going to be a lot of, you know, national news from that time, as well as, you know, local news from where I'm based. And I also have another long-term project that I'm working on where I'm trying to write and compile the history of pro wrestling in the Congo in Africa. And that one's pretty tough, especially because I don't speak French or really read French all that well. And all of my research is coming from, you know, talking to wrestlers there or trying to dig up some old newspapers and things like that. I have tracked some of the papers down, and I do have something in place to work out an exchange to, you know, get those for my research, but it's still just going to be a ton of work, and, you know, it's going to be tough since I don't speak the language. But those are just some big projects you can keep an eye out for, as well as always some international pieces of news here and there.
And it sounds like you have a lot on your plate at the moment.
I do, yeah. And even I feel like just WrestleMap itself is a lot on my plate, because you know, the whole idea behind WrestleMap is I started to create like a world pro wrestling map, where I want to list like every promotion in the world, and it's grown from there. But even just trying to compile all that has been a lot of work. So.
And before we continue, just so everybody knows, all of the links to all your social media will be in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and
Awesome.
Xbox.
Cool.
So you mentioned you wanted to make a map, a pro wrestling map of the world. How do you start? How do you go about doing something, and what kind of made you want to do that?
Oh man, so it kind of started out as the idea originally was like I've been a wrestling fan for a long time, and there was always something intriguing to me about like finding wrestling in places that like I didn't really expect to find it, and like discovering different wrestling scenes that I didn't know much about, like around the world, and just trying to get into those. So originally, like I'd come across some stuff in South Africa and like UK, stuff like that, and I was like, I wanted to at least have a way to keep track of it for myself to look back on and like check in and watch what they put out and that kind of stuff when I had a chance. And then I started to kind of build this map. It was during COVID, like when COVID first hit, and it kind of became my hobby then. But then as I started to build it, I thought, I think there are some possible like uses that people in the industry and fans could have for this. So I started to, compile even more. I made it kind of like a mission to try and get everything on there, with the idea that, fans could use it to find new wrestling, or, promoters could use it as, just a way for other people to find their wrestling, and then wrestlers could use it to find places if they wanted to tour internationally, to make contact with promotion, things like that. So I'd compiled it through this map making app, and I didn't like the way it looked, but I was happy with like what I was doing. I put some stuff out there online. First I went to Reddit, and I was in one of the subreddits there, and I posted Squared Circle. That was it. Thank you. And I posted about, I'm putting together this map, and I got a really, really positive response with people from all around the world saying, hey, don't forget to include us. Don't forget to include us. So then I was kind of like, all right, I'm going to move forward with like making this a website and, making this available to people, around the world. And it's just continued to grow. It's both, I get the promotions either just from my own research, which, just searching online, trying to, come across news stories, or like I have an alphabetical list of countries where like I'll just try and search through like each of those countries and see if I can find wrestling there, see if any of their cities have wrestling, just all sorts of stuff like that. And there's also been a lot of submissions too. The first that came through Squared Circle on that original post, and then a couple other posts I'd done after that. And then now they come in all through the website. I have a link on WrestleMap.com under the map area where you can submit. Like if you are looking at the map and you notice your local promotion isn't on there, or a promotion that of isn't on there, then, it has a contact form that you can send over, and that's been really helpful too. So it's been a little bit of, a lot of help from people, and a little bit of a lot of hard work and research on my end.
And it's great that your post on Squared Circle got such a positivity. Usually they are not an agreeable bunch.
I know, and that's kind of like, that's one of the very few positive experiences I've had with Reddit. Honestly, it's been like when I've shared stuff about the map, and I actually got pretty good responses when I first got into trying to like produce some wrestling events, because I had an idea that I would like to bring like wrestling events in Africa to like a bigger like English speaking audience. So I helped put out an event for like a Nigerian company, and then I did one that I sponsored all on my own for group in the Congo. I put out 2 of those now, but those along with, you know, the original posts about the map are like the only times I've ever gotten positive experiences on there, or really on Reddit as a whole.
Well, I could actually relate to that. Our interviews started on Reddit, so I have a soft spot for Reddit myself.
Yeah. See, like, it can be good, and it can launch something really cool, like, you know, with both of our projects, but then if you get I don't know, if you hit it at the wrong time or post the wrong thing, then you definitely can feel the wrath.
Definitely don't mention CM Punk.
Right.
You know, compiling WrestleMaps and, you know, coming across wrestling from different countries, where did you find wrestling that you found surprising that this country had pro wrestling?
There's been quite a few, and some of them have been like really small projects that maybe didn't last very long, but it's, you know, the fact that they tried it and like hung around with it for a little bit was really cool. There's this group in Bermuda that I was really interested in. They had a wrestling ring, they had like a pro ring and everything, and they ran programs through their church, where it would be like their matches would be like the devil versus God and things like that. And I thought those were interesting, really cool. I don't think they're at it anymore, which I was sad to see. But you know, there's been a lot of like the Eurasian country of Georgia. You know, they have a really strong like amateur program and have had a lot of Olympians, but they never really had much pro wrestling. But I was able to track down a little bit that they did there, and was in contact with a group that was, you know, trying to build something, and you know, they kind of didn't succeed, but it was still cool to see them trying. Along with that, like Iran, there's actually a pretty decent wrestling scene in Iran, which I thought was really interesting. Like how big it is in the Congo in Africa, and like everything going on there with like voodoo wrestling and stuff like that I didn't know too much about until I, you know, dove into it. Like that's been really interesting. And then like Nepal, they have just like a wild wrestling scene with like fans. Their events will turn out like 5,000 fans per show, and so there's quite a few that I've come across where I've been like surprised or like intrigued, you know, for whatever reason.
Is there any place in the world you're surprised there isn't pro wrestling?
Some of the countries in Europe, I am a little surprised. Some of the smaller countries, like, I don't know, like Luxembourg, I haven't found anything, or like Monaco. Like, they're small countries, but, you know, it just seems like there's been a lot of wrestling in Europe. Also, there is wrestling in Russia, but I'm surprised that there isn't more of it. I've really only been able to find like 1 or 2 like indie promotions, and it's you know, a lot in like the western areas of Russia. So like there's just this huge region in the east that just has nothing as far as I know. So it just seems like I would have expected there to be a little bit more than there is there.
Considering how big the country is.
Yeah, exactly.
My problem is finding the translator to actually talk to those wrestlers.
Oh, I know. Man, tell me about it, because I spend a lot of time just using Google Translate. I can't talk obviously like an audio because I don't understand. So I'll have to have a lot of text conversations if there's something that I'm, right. You know, if I'm writing something out, or if I, you know, I'm trying to get to the bottom of something that I found and try and get it figured out. So, you know, Google Translate has been a really good friend, but it's also not always right on. And then, of course, like for you, that would be really tough because you do audio interviews. So, yeah.
Quick recommendation. You could find people on Reddit that will translate those things for you.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. That's cool. That's good to know. Thanks.
Believe me, you could find it on Reddit. But I did notice that you have a strong connection and involvement with African pro wrestling.
Yeah.
What specifically did about African pro wrestling that got you so involved, and how did you get involved in it?
Yeah, so I just found it like something about the idea of there being wrestling there and just it being like very, very underreported, very like no one seemed to, no one covered it. Like maybe every once in a while you'd hear about possibly something in South Africa, or like you'd hear WWE went to South Africa, or like, if you were to read some of the wrestlers' biographies, like some of them had traveled to Nigeria like back in the 80s, like I know Mick Foley did, and so like there was something where like I knew there was like a history, and I knew that there was probably something, so I wanted to, and it also seemed like a good opportunity to, help bring coverage to something that no one else was talking about, and bring more like awareness and more spotlight for the wrestlers there. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved in it. And then I also had some other ideas on things I maybe wanted to try with wrestlers in Africa and see what kind of things we could get going. I got involved with it mostly through building some relationships in Nigeria. There's a guy who's been involved in the wrestling scene there since the late 70s. His name is Olusesan Olukoya, and he's really had like every role imaginable in the wrestling scene in Nigeria. But one of his biggest roles has been that he's been like a kind of like an author and like historian about like covering the Nigerian scene. And
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he also runs Pro Wrestling Africa, which is they've established in like the last 10 or so years, and their goal is to kind of like build like a pro wrestling circuit kind of throughout the continent, like on a kind of a higher level, and organizing more arena shows and venues and things like that. So he early on there was like I was aware of Pro Wrestling Africa from like some research I'd done, and I think I tagged them in a post. I think I remember actually exactly what happened. Kenny Omega did a promo where he was talking about how he's the best bout machine, he would have the best matches everywhere, and then he listed Zimbabwe. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna put this post up where I'm gonna say, hey Kenny, if you have the best matches in Zimbabwe, why don't you challenge Power Lee, who is the PWA champion at the time, for the Pro Wrestling Africa title? And of course I didn't hear from Kenny, but I did hear from the promoter of PWA, and that's Olusesan. And from there we've just kind of been in contact ever since. He contributes news pieces to the website here and there, and through him I've gotten involved with Nigeria Pro Wrestling Federation, and that's kind of how I got my foot in the door to do some commentary and like event production for them. And I'm also on the board of Pro Wrestling Africa along with him, as well as I do some sponsorship with them as well. So we kind of have some deals working back and forth where some we'll be able to get the video exclusively available to WrestleMap for some support, both money wise and creatively. And then I also wanted to get involved with Wrestling in the Congo just because of how massive it is, and I thought that if people in America or English speaking areas could maybe see a little bit more like a presentation of this in English, that they might think it's cool, because it is such a different style. Like they do have the voodoo wrestling there, but there's also like like a classic style of pro wrestling, which is still a little bit different from what we see, but I still think it's really cool. So there's a wrestler there in Brazzaville in the Republic of the Congo. His name is RTGA. He's actually currently the champion of the Republic of the Congo. They do things like there's a federation that like oversees the whole country and then the cities and then the neighborhoods, but like the top title there is like represents the whole country. So he's currently the champion of the whole country. Him and I worked out a couple of deals where, you know, in return for some sponsorship stuff, I would get the videos to produce and stuff like that. So with that one, I kind of just took a big leap. I didn't know him at all. Like I wasn't introduced to him, and I was just really hoping for the best. And it somehow it worked out. And he's an awesome guy. And you know, we really have hit it off. And you know, I consider him a great friend and a great like business partner as well. So yeah, it's just been kind of, you know, some luck and some like cool relationship building.
The Brazzaville event, that was actually put on by WrestleMaps, right?
Yeah, the Brawl in Brazzaville is what I called it on my end. I think they were calling it Super Showdown down there when they held it. But yeah, that one, that was kind of all our idea. And I had originally reached out to RTGA and said, you know, what can we do to... And I honestly, I didn't think that we were going to have it in an arena when I originally talked to him. I was thinking maybe just like, you know, an outside event, and we were able to make it work where we booked out the, well, he booked it out. He did like all of the groundwork and that stuff, but the one gymnasium in Brazzaville, and we got a pretty good crowd, and yeah.
What does it kind of mean to you to be able to kind of low-key say that you promoted an event?
Oh, it's awesome. It's like, you know, I've always wanted to, you know, run my own promotion. That's always been something that's like, you know, been a goal of mine. Like I love like booking, like fantasy booking. Like I play TEW a lot, Total Extreme Wrestling. So, you know, I've always had some ideas that I would like to try and get involved in that some, and, you know, actually doing that for the, you know, to an extent for, you know, that Brazzaville show was awesome. I mean, a lot of the credit for like how the show was put together, that was RTGA, but at least, you know, matches wise, the production and stuff, that was on my end. And, you know, him and I still have some more stuff down the road that is planned, but it's kind of fallen through slightly as of right now. There was going to be a big match between wrestlers from two different Congos, from the DRC and the Republic of the Congo, two of the top classic style wrestlers. I have faith it'll still happen. I just don't know when at this point, but there's we already put some stuff in place for it, so I am counting on it at some point.
Okay. Now, you got the International Royal Award for Pro Wrestling Excellence from Pro Wrestling Africa. What did that mean to you?
Oh man, that was like a thing where it was like one of those things where like you can't believe it's real almost, or like what do you mean, like I'm getting this, like, you know, that kind of weird thing. It was really cool. You know, it felt like a lot of, you know, hard work that I put in kind of was like that helped feel like fulfilling for some of it. And it was really cool because, you know, at the event that I was presented that at, obviously I couldn't be there. It was in Cameroon, but
you couldn't make a flight down to Cameroon.
I know, right? But there was a wrestler there, the Wolf NDA, he's based in the USA now, which is awesome. His story was one I was covering a lot in the earlier days of WrestleMap, but he's now in the USA. He's taken a small break from wrestling, but he'd been on the Texas indie scene for a while, doing pretty well. But he accepted the award on my behalf there. And there was like, they presented that award to two other wrestlers, And then the only other non-wrestler besides me was the president of Cameroon. So I was like, how am I like in this company? That seems kind of strange and not right, but super cool at the same time. And I was finally able to like actually get the physical award pretty recently. I think it was last summer, because I think I was presented it in maybe 2021 or something like that, and it was just kind of in Nigeria. But there's a wrestler from Florida, the Golden Boy, Jimmy McDowell, and he actually traveled to Cameroon to wrestle for Pro Wrestling Africa. And while he was there, he grabbed a couple packages for me from Olusegun, including that award. So now I finally, have it at home, and it's just like the coolest thing.
It is a very beautiful award, I will say that.
Yeah, it really is. It's very, very well done. Really nice.
And on top of that, you have a certificate of appreciation from Nigeria as well.
Yeah, that was from NPWF for, some of like the promotional and like video work and stuff I've done for them. So yeah, another thing that like it helps you feel like, you're not doing it all for nothing, because I don't make money really. So it's been like all, for hoping that people think it's cool is really been like, I have hopes maybe one day I can maybe make some more ad money from the website or like YouTube, but at this point that's not really, what's motivating things. So that, getting some recognition is always awesome.
Right. Now let's kind of take it to the States for a minute here. WrestleMaps, obviously does a lot of promotions in America. I'm just curious, how do you manage all of those companies? Especially, a lot of them pop up and then a lot of them pop out, defunct before they even really get started. So,
yeah, well, at least like on the map, that's tough, because it's like, sometimes I don't know, when companies go under, and unless I see it or unless someone gives me a heads up, that's just, sometimes it's like, I don't know, and I'll hear through the grapevine a little bit later. So getting heads up always is really helpful, like people sending me, tagging me in things, or like sending me some messages so I can, send out the word, or make any adjustments, whatever. But yeah, sometimes I just don't know. It's hard to keep up with everything. So that's kind of like, I used to try to really like beat myself up over it and be like, I got to be on top of every single thing, but it's just too tough to keep up with every promotion around the world, honestly.
you mean it's impossible to look after 2,000 wrestling companies?
Yeah, believe it or not, that's
just out of genuine curiosity, how many companies are in the New England area alone?
Oh man, I don't know if I have like a solid number, and I think that even the number I have is probably low. So like, I don't think I have everything. I think there's still always more out there that I'm trying to track down. I would guess there's got to be a few hundred. I mean, throughout the world, I think, like you said, 2,000. Let me see. I have the map up right here.
Pull up that good WrestleMap.
I have 1,500 listed as active promotions right now, and I know that there's way more than that. So like, man, just looking at New England, it's like there's got to be, I would say there's got to be like 50 to 100 easily, just in that area.
That sounds about right. I've probably done interviews from all of them at this point.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Buffalo, correct?
Yeah, that's where I'm from. Yep.
Could you tell us what kind of inspired the new podcast you're doing about the history of Buffalo?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I do some work here and there for for like ESW, who is local, Empire State Wrestling, like I share a lot of their press releases, and I've covered their events live. So like, I have an interest in local wrestling as it is, and I've gotten a lot more into like history lately of wrestling, and there's been a couple pieces that people have done on the history of wrestling in Buffalo. Like there's one really great book by Dan Murphy, who's worked for Pro Wrestling Illustrated. He did one called Body Slams in Buffalo. That's a great book. And then there's another one that was that covered like the glory days of sports in Buffalo, that looked at like stuff through like the 30s to the 50s. So I thought like, there's some good history resources out there, but as someone that likes to really research, the history of things, I kind of felt like there was an opportunity to try and tell the whole history. And I know that like Buffalo used to be a much, bigger, more prominent city than it is now. Early 1900s, it was like one of the biggest cities in the country. And, like the president was assassinated here. And like, there's just this, like, Buffalo then kind of like fell on hard times, but back to like early, like 1900 and in that area, wrestling was starting to really blow up, and some of like the big matches were happening here in Buffalo. So like, Frank Gotch was wrestling here in Buffalo, and, I've come across some stuff about that, but, I wanted to know more. I think some of it started too when I did a history of wrestling in the Canadian Arctic, and I was just reading a lot about Frank Gotch around then, and I, started to realize, okay, like he spent some time in Buffalo, and maybe this would be cool to look into. I started to go to the library and pull like some old papers and stuff like that, and then I just kind of got hooked on it, and I was like, all right. And when I do things, I try to be like really thorough. Like I want to get like all the details. So I kind of saw an opportunity of like, let's tell the story of like pro wrestling in Buffalo from the beginning. I don't know that I can get from the very beginning though, because that would go back into like the 1800s, and that just seems like a lot. And I don't know that everyone would want to stick around for, whole episodes on stuff in the 1800s. So I thought 1900 was a good place to start, and maybe I'll look back on some of it, some of the pre-1900 stuff at some point. But yeah, I don't know. It's just the idea of Buffalo as like a bigger, more important city. And then, just as even during the territory days, Buffalo is an important spot, for also like, not just for like, the NWF was based out of here in Cleveland. And then there was like the McMahons thought Buffalo was kind of like a interesting, tactical spot to get when they started to move out. And, as they wanted to get into Toronto, it's kind of like, we're pretty close to there. So there's just like a lot of stuff that I think can be told that's pretty cool.
It definitely sounds like there is a lot to cover.
Yeah, and then even like indie wrestling today in Buffalo is great. Like even like you look at some of the like I would say mostly AEW is where a lot of the Buffalo guys ended up, but even still on the indies now, there's some like Kevin Blackwood that's still he's making a pretty big name for himself. Right.
Personal favorite Poof.
Yeah. Oh, I love him. He's so fun.
Oh yeah. You mentioned doing commentary as well.
Yeah.
Has doing commentary given you any maybe insight or perspective on pro wrestling?
Yeah, for sure. I think it helps me watch it a little bit differently, and I think the way that I think about it as I'm watching it is a little different. I've done like live commentary for a local indie, but that was kind of only a one-time thing. That didn't really pan out for a few different reasons, but yeah. And then when I started to do some of like the African shows, I knew there had to be commentary, and I thought, I've always wanted to try this, so let's try it. And people have been really cool about it. I've talked to some people that have, called wrestling for a long time that have given me some tips and stuff like that have really helped and have definitely changed the way that I think as I'm watching wrestling.
So you're doing it solo, correct?
Yeah, I am. There's been some consideration to do more than one person, a 2-man booth or 3-person booth, whatever, something like that. But just the way that I work, it just seemed easier to try and kind of knock it out that way with just me as of now. So it's always a possibility in the future. And the other thing is too, though, and I know that I had some people that volunteered and said, they would love to do it, that have had some experience and stuff. But the thing that I kind of did feel bad about is I didn't really think I could offer pay because, I'd already put some, significant money into getting it set up, sponsoring and all of that. And then, putting in the work to edit things, and I knew how everything was going to lay out, and it just seemed easier to kind of do it that way and, not tell someone, I'm sorry, I don't think I'll be able to pay you, So I just felt it was easier to kind of go it alone.
Well, just on, the broadcasting side, Joey styling it, I can imagine that's maybe a little bit more nerve-wracking than having somebody, beside you doing commentary.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess it probably can be. I've really only done commentary with another person once, and it wasn't even for a full show, and they weren't really a wrestling announcer. It was, I don't need to necessarily get into the full details, but it was the promoter's kid, and
okay.
He was pretty young, and it was we tried to bounce off each other the best we could, but it's just kind of I guess that's the way that I've been used to doing things. I'm sure if you're working with someone that's a real pro, they would probably make things a lot easier for you, but I guess it's just the only way that I've known how to do it, and I've just tried to take into account some of the stuff that people have tried to some of the knowledge people have shared with me along the way.
Okay. Well, you are not a man alone on a WrestleMap. You do have some correspondence as well.
Yeah.
Jim Murray from China.
Yeah, Jim Murray, he did our vlog that we had in Shanghai for Middle Kingdom Wrestling. They had a big event there, Bash at the Bay, and I worked as a sponsor, and part of our deal was that we're going to help produce this blog, and Jim was awesome in it. He got some great footage and did some cool interviews for us, and yeah, I thought that worked out great.
Now, definitely don't want to leave the politics aside, but I found this very interesting that even right now today, there's wrestling in the Ukraine.
Yeah, they were out of action for a while, so their story is really interesting. They had, they were running regularly, and then they had a show planned for I think it was either the day of or the day after Russia started the offensive in Ukraine, and they had to obviously cancel their show. They were based in Odessa, and I think Odessa got hit pretty hard in those first couple days, and so they were out of action for probably a couple of years, and at least one of their wrestlers ended up enlisting in the Ukrainian military and is still actively fighting in the war. And in the middle of the war, they're called a Ukrainian Wrestling Arena, by the way, UWA. They in the middle of the war, they actually packed up and moved their operations from Odessa to the capital of Kiev, where I would think like from what you hear on the news, it seems like, you know, maybe fighting was even worse there, but they were able to start hosting live events again. Started back up. It was either November or December of last year, still in the middle of like the active war. Their first show, they sold out. It was only a crowd of like 100 in a smaller venue, but still, it was like, I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool to see, like in an active war zone, that, you know, people are still coming out for wrestling. The wrestlers are still entertaining, and, you know, the people are able to have like a night to enjoy the show. But yeah, they've still been going since. So once they started back up, they haven't stopped yet.
That's very inspiring, actually.
Oh yeah, yeah. I put together a little story and video about that. There's a short little video on my YouTube with some photos and stuff like that from the show, and yeah, they're cool. I was in contact with them around when it all started, and, you know, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say I was close friends, but, you know, you build relationships with some of these people, and then it's like, oh, now they're in a war zone. Like, it's always, you know, pretty scary. And that's one of the things with, like, you know, building relationships with people all around the world. It's like you hear these, you know, if these big major events happen, or like, you know, earthquake in Turkey and things like that, and then it's like, oh no, like, you know, how are the wrestlers there that I know? Like, and so, you know, you worry and like you check in and stuff like that, but yeah, it can get nerve-wracking.
We're going from, you know, an actual war to a war you inadvertently got involved in, and that's the Iraq wrestling war.
Iran, yes, Iran, yeah. Yeah, that was, man, that was interesting. So there's a couple rival groups there. There's the IWG, Iran Wrestling Group, and Iran Pro Wrestling, and they do not like each other. They're based in the same city, and I don't know the full story on what happened there. I think there was some kind of falling out where, you know, I think the formation of IPW came after a group left IWG, and they started their own thing. And both sides, you know, they definitely let me know that they were not happy that I was covering the other, and, you know, I even got some threatening messages and things like that. So yeah.
It sounds like, you know, everything that we've been talking about, you know, everything has been pretty positive. A lot of good vibes, you know, even from Reddit, which you don't get. Was this the first, like, negativity? Like, they were like, no, you can't come?
I don't know if it was the first. It was the most intense. There's been, I would say, like, the most, like, most of the stuff that I would get would be one side kind of talking about someone else that they don't like, another promotion or people that they don't like, and they'd come to me with something about it and, you know, try to, I don't know, get me, you know, I try to be as impartial as I can, and I just want to cover all the wrestling, and I don't want to get involved in anything.
The politics.
So, exactly. So, I, you know, would just try to stay neutral the best I could, and, you know, that kind of thing. And the one in Iran was the first time where they kind of turned it on me, where they, you know, started to take some of it out on me as if I was, you know, favoring one side or the other. And I just tried to do my best to explain to them, like, if you guys have events or if you have, you know, something that you want to share with me, I would be glad to, you know, repost it, or if I have time, put a story up, or, you know, I have you guys on the map. It's all, you know, really the same thing. It's just maybe this one side is sending me more than you guys are, and that's all. You know, if you have events, please let me know. And I think I was able to kind of smooth things over eventually, but yeah, that was the first one that really got, like, personal with me, I guess.
That was, of course, a part of Tales from the Map, which is a new segment that you're starting to do. Yeah,
there's a couple other ideas I have. I think I've had some stories from some of the work I've done in Africa and Nigeria that I'd like to tell. Not physically. It's been all through like, just contacts that I've had, but there's been some interesting contacts and kind of proposals that I've gotten wrapped up into that I definitely would like to tell some of those stories soon as well.
I think that's a great segue into Brian's bizarre adventure. You're in the pro wrestling world, and weird, crazy, and bizarre things are bound to happen. Can you tell us, I wouldn't necessarily say a road story, but could you tell us a story that fits that description?
Oh man. Let's see. There's, I guess maybe, just along the lines of getting some like hostility. There's been some stuff from Nepal where the companies there, they also have really bad. They don't get along either, and there's like they have really strict policies about who can compete where. If you compete for another company, you're just completely banned from the other, and you're more or less like your career is screwed over. And I've found myself caught in the middle of that with wrestlers kind of like coming to me like, hey, can you try to help me out? And this isn't good for my career. I'm no longer with this company. Can you help me with some coverage and stuff like that? And then there's also been the other side of like, hey, don't intermingle, because I've done like a history of Nepal. It's like, don't intermingle us with the other groups. Not necessarily threatening, but like not happy to be getting this coverage, not happy to, kind of be mixed in with anyone else. They all want to exist on their own. So maybe a little bit of hostilities there. I do get like a lot of people. Fans, I think, do ask me for money a lot. I think they think that I'm like really rich or something. So I get a lot of messages from, fans in different parts of the world, like, hey, can you send me some money? I really need it. And I'm just like, I can't. I'm so sorry. Like, I'd love to be able to help out, but it's, you don't know who you're sending it to.
Right.
There was also, this might be a good story for one day, but I can tell it here. Like for a little Tales from the Map thing, but I got a phone call from someone that was claiming to be some type of investigator, and I don't think they were. I think it was all BS, but they somehow had information from my Western Union, which is what I would use to send stuff to, some of the African companies that I was helping out, like sponsor and stuff like that. And someone called me that must have, I don't know, hacked into an account or something. And they start to tell me that they are an investigator, and they see that my activity, that I've been working with Boko Haram and Al Qaeda, and, that I'm now under investigation, and that some of the people I'm working with, they've just been arrested for, human trafficking, and that they're holding, a 14-year-old girl in their home and stuff like that. And it was just the craziest. Like at first, as it started to happen, I was like, how did they have this information on me? And I did feel a little scared, like maybe I did like accidentally communicate with the wrong person. But then it kind of got to be more and more clear that this was someone trying to pull a scam on me. As like they kept randomly hanging up the phone on me, and then they'd call right back, and they would say, something like, you don't want to mess with us, you don't mess with the government, stop hanging up on us. I'm like, you guys know that you hung up on me. Like I didn't. And then it just kind of stopped. So it was definitely kind of scary for a minute or two, but yeah, that's one of the crazier things that's happened to me for sure.
Yeah, even just the neutral parties, get caught up in the drama, unfortunately.
Yeah, right?
But some might call it hilarious, and that being said, you are a comedian.
Yeah, I don't do stand-up as much anymore. I was a stand-up for a little bit, and then after COVID, I haven't really been back on stage since everything got shut down. I still do a comedy podcast and stuff like that. I do think every now and then that I'm going to get back up on stage, but I don't know, like wrestling takes up a lot of time now for like hobbies, and when I'm writing, it's usually like a story about wrestling or like for a video or for a podcast, and I just don't have as much time to, write stand-up jokes. But like with the podcast, we do a little bit more improv, so it's a little bit like, well, I'll write a little bit, but then it's easier to, just go on there for an hour or so and, joke around. So
That's a segue into OMG, so random, Hehe, podcast.
That's right. So yeah, we do Twitch recordings, so we're live on video every Tuesday at 8 Eastern, and then our episodes come out every Friday, everywhere you get podcasts. OMG, so random, Hehe. I think it's a lot of fun. I think we've been putting out some really good episodes lately. We have a little bit of a bizarre sense of humor to an extent. It is a little bit on the how could I describe this? Like shit posting or like weird Twitter, kind of falls in that range a little bit, to an extent. But I think there's something for everybody on there. We like to scam the scammers. So like the person that I was talking about, that called to scam me about, I'm under investigation and all that. We tried to get them on the phone on the show. We got a very little clip with them, but yeah, so that's, I don't know, we have fun.
Well, tell us about your relationship with your co-host, Doc Walker.
So Dirk and I actually met online. He's in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Well, actually, he just moved. He's in Peoria, Illinois now. But he was in Fort Wayne, and I actually met some other friends that were in Indy, and we kind of all got together not too long ago, a couple of years ago now. But we did like a little show, an art show in Fort Wayne, and from there, we just all kept in contact. And then Dirk and I, we'd always talked about doing a podcast. He's been a stand-up comedian as well, and he's done some podcasts, and he's actually in like radio production. So it works really well that we have someone like on the show that knows how to do all that stuff. So him and I, we came up with the idea. The original idea was that we were going to do a random Wikipedia article every week and joke about it. And that went on for a while. And then we just kind of like switched gears into kind of just more like improv. And we have some, regular jokes that we go back and forth to, kind of stories that we follow, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, we're pretty close now. And yeah, it all started through like Twitter and the internet, which is crazy.
Now, can you tell us why the Sheldon Ace Hardware company holds the fate of your podcast in their hands?
Oh, I love that you're asking this. Yeah, so this is, I got to go back to the beginning with them. So we have like a phone line for the show. And part of what we do when we we call it scamming the scammers. We'll get a lot of scam calls. We'll call the scammers back and we'll try to mess with them. One of the phone calls that we got actually came from this random hardware store in California, Sheldon Ace Hardware. And we were like, we kind of started to build a story around it. Like, why are they, calling us? Someone at the store must be listening to the show. At this point, we've now evolved it to, they're definitely playing the show over the loudspeaker as we're recording live. So we've actually called them a couple times recently on the air, and we got a couple different employees, and we thought that they were just so nice when we talked to them that we sent them each $25 gift cards to Applebee's. And we got a notification that one of the employees hadn't opened their gift card yet. So we wanted to get to the bottom of it. We tried calling them again, and this time they didn't seem so friendly with us. So we're like, okay, maybe we should stop calling them, but we're not going to stop talking about them. We came up with this very strange idea for our 300th episode that if somehow the employees of Sheldon Ace Hardware got together and formed a choir and called us during the show singing the song, Give Peace a Chance by John Lennon, but they were singing Give Men a Chance because we had this joke about, 2024 is the year that men will finally get a chance, which is, really out there. So this idea that they were going to call us, if they were to somehow form this this all choir, all employee choir, call the show, sing Give Men a Chance, then we would have to shut down immediately. And we've just had a lot of fun joking about like how we have to thank them for letting us stick around, and we tag them in all our social media posts. They don't, pay any attention to it. We envision sometimes what the employee meetings are like, where one day they might be like, we just need these calls and these social media tags to just stop. Although we're not badgering them through phone calls anymore. So, we're not trying to be, mean or anything, but, we just imagine sometimes they're going to be like, holding a meeting, and they're like, I know this sounds strange, but in order to get these social media tags to stop, we all need to get together and we need to call this show and we need to sing Give Men a Chance. So, yeah, that's just been, a story that's been developing over a while. So it's a little long and it's gotten, pretty tangled up and a little weird, but they hold the keys to our fate.
It's basically your apologies to Matt Damon, per se.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Now, can you tell us about that time you thought you saw Giant Gonzalez at the hospital?
Yeah. Oh man, this is good. I love this. So yeah, I went in for a colonoscopy, and they gave me some good drugs. I was on Versed, which I think is like a twilight drug. Like it kind of puts you out, but you're like real spacey. You're kind of there, but you're kind of not. And also fentanyl, which really scared me. And I had to ask them. I made sure they had Narcan on hand because I didn't want them to put me under and then I didn't wake up just for a colonoscopy.
Right.
But I woke up after the colonoscopy and I was just blabbering. I had a lot to say and none of it made any sense. And I thought at one point that I said to either one of the doctors or nurses, I thought that they were wearing a big fuzzy costume. And I thought I asked them, or, someone, if Giant Gonzalez was around. And my wife, who took the video of me, which she took a lot of videos that day, and it's hilarious. Like, I'm not, I find that funny. I encourage it. She let me know, no, I did not ask anyone if Giant Gonzalez was here, but I was convinced he was there.
Okay. Giant Gonzalez is just wandering the halls of a Buffalo hospital.
Yeah.
Alright. I don't know how I'm going to transition to this. Let's get to the colossal question. Let's say that they're making a movie about you. Every movie has a soundtrack. What would be the first 3 songs on your movie soundtrack?
Oh my god. This is really hard. Oh man. Wow. Okay, so I feel like it would have to be there'd have to be some scenes that these would go along with that were like big moments in my life, or like moments that kind of defined me or parts of my life. So there was the time where when I was in first grade, I thought I could get away with shitting in my pants on the day that we moved, and I had diarrhea by accident. And just for some reason, I'm hearing Every Step You Take by Biggie and Puffy in that one. So that would be in there. Let's see, 3. Let's see, what else is there? Man, this is tough. I'm like, I have 3 cats. I really love my cats. So I don't know. Maybe I Love You from Barney would be one of the songs, and it'd be a little montage of me playing with my cats. And then I should probably do something for my wife too, maybe from our wedding day. And I think at that one, 1999 by Prince would be playing, because we partied hard at that wedding. We danced to Prince, and Prince is just an all-time favorite of mine. So I think that'd be perfect.
Okay, solid 3 picks. Now that we have the soundtrack down, everybody knows you get the soundtrack first, then you write the script, and then you go to casting. Who plays Brian? And you can't say yourself because you are legally obligated to make a Stan Lee-esque cameo.
Oh man, who plays me? I've gotten a lot of comments about like some celebrities that I look like, especially when my hair was a little bit curlier and like bigger. So I think one that really sticks out to me is Brett, who was in Flight of the Conchords. People always thought I looked like him, so I would just have to go with him. I don't even know his last name. I just know that he was Brett from Flight of the Conchords that was on HBO.
Okay. Now, every movie has a supporting cast. Who would be 3 people significant to you and your story that would be in your movie, and who would play them?
All right, my dad would be Jean-Claude Van Damme,
Okay.
no doubt. My mom, let's say Kathy Ireland, just because her name is Kathy, and I know that Kathy Ireland is an actress, but I don't know anything about her work. And then my wife, let's say she's played by Lucy Hale.
Okay. And just for anybody that doesn't know, the person playing Brian is Brett McKenzie.
There it is. There we go. Yeah, I had no idea what his last name was.
Yes. Right. It is sounding like an incredible movie, a blockbuster to say the least, and you could pre-order the tickets now.
Yeah.
Now, there was one thing that I wanted to ask you about WrestleMaps, and that is the logo.
Yeah.
The thing I found interesting was the wrestlers. Like, the wrestler that has him up, he's holding his back rather than his front, like a power slam.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of always looked at it as like he's gonna, toss him to somewhere else in the world. Is kind of my thing. Land somewhere else on the map.
Oh,
so that's always. And to be honest, I got that little graphic. It was a stock photo, so I did not design that. I made like the text and like the color and tying it all together, but that the actual guy pressing the other guy, that was a stock photo. I did not make that.
Okay. Question answered. On to a controversial subject.
Okay.
Pineapple on pizza. What's your stance?
Yeah. Definitely, yes. I love Hawaiian pizza.
Okay, so pro pineapple.
Yep, I would do it with, ham and red sauce, or I would even do it with like chicken and barbecue. Yeah, I'm definitely pro pineapple on pizza.
What's your spirit Pokemon?
Oof. Man, I don't know. I guess just Charizard is, I spit hot fire, right? So that's
All right. Now, we love the late, great Tracy Smothers on the show.
okay.
Do you know the acronym for Doug? THUG.
I don't think I do. No.
T is for terrible, H is for hell, U is for ugly, and G is for jail. 'Cause a Doug can't spell.
Okay.
Yes, we love the late great Tracy Smothers trying to keep the memory alive.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked his work in ECW, like with the FBI, but I would say that was the most that I got to watch of him.
I believe that's where Doug came from, was the FBI.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I must, to me it was a while back, so.
Yeah. It's just hilarious that they were the full-blooded Italians and Tracy
know.
was clearly Irish.
Yeah, right. It was perfect.
Yes. Weirdest question you'll be asked on a wrestling interview, hopefully. Would you ever consider getting in the ring with a Rock? Not Dwayne Johnson, not the country, an actual physical Rock.
I've gotten in the ring as a ring announcer with some intimidating wrestlers that have gotten in my face, so I think I would get in the ring with The Rock, yes.
Okay. Well, just for context, there is a wrestler named Psycho Mike that indeed wrestled a Rock for over 15 minutes in
Yes,
a tungsten
backyard-
net match.
Backyard Pro.
Yes.
Yes, I know it well.
Hell yeah.
I love, and Vaughn Vertigo, who runs that, he's awesome. He's a really good guy, and he's an awesome wrestler too.
100%. Love Vaughn. Friend of the show as well.
Awesome.
I hope that we get season 4 sooner rather than later.
I know. I actually did a little piece years back about Backyard Pro, and I was talking with Vaughn, and I asked him, I was like, after the pandemic, like, do you think you'll stick with this? He said, yeah. So I hope so. I hope it does come back at some point. But I did see that Detective Cookie Dough, she is going to be out for a little bit. Alexia Nicole.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Yeah, she's got some blood clot issues, which is really unfortunate.
It really is. She was doing some really great things.
Yeah.
I interviewed her just after the shoulder injury.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw she got to do like an ECW match, or I'm sorry, AEW match too, right?
Yeah, and she was one of the girls that was with MJF in one of his
Yeah,
skits.
That's right.
Yeah. And somebody took at the end of season 3. Somebody stole her title. I can't remember his name. But yeah, Detective Cookie Dough is titleless.
Yeah. Well, I do hope that Backyard Pro comes back. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. I need Jay Wheeler in my life.
Yeah.
Alright. On a more serious note, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh man, I don't know. I hope still doing some WrestleMap stuff. I hope that it's gotten more popular. I think it is continuing to grow. I would love to be doing something full time with that, if that's ever possible. But it seems like I don't want to do like you can never say never, but I don't know. It seems tough, and I don't want to like work myself so hard and be like, I need to make money on this, like Tim Robinson sketch or whatever,
Right.
But yeah, I would like, I hope it's still going strong. I hope that it's helpful to more people. I hope that, personally, I would like to be working a different full-time job than I am now, but we'll see. don't know, I hope I'm still going with comedy to an extent as well, getting better, and maybe I'll get back on stage at some point. Maybe get involved more in some of the local indies, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of possibilities there.
And maybe the Sheldon Ace Hardware will decide to put you out of your misery.
They might. They might. It really could happen at any second.
As we speak, they're coming together.
No, they're gonna call us tomorrow now when we record on Twitch. Now that
what is a segment or report that you've had on the WrestleMap's YouTube page that you feel that people should go out of their way to see after this interview?
I really thought that the history and current day of Nepal pro wrestling, I liked that a lot. I thought it got a good response. I did some stuff about African pro wrestling in 2023, that the scene and some of the champions that maybe it's a little maybe some champions aren't necessarily the same, but a lot of the wrestlers still are. So I think if you'd like to get interested in a little primer in African pro wrestling, I did kind of a 3-part series there about big stories, top wrestlers, top champions, wrestlers to watch. I think that would be cool to check out if you have any interest in African pro wrestling. I did my most recent long project that I did was longer. I think it was maybe 15 to 20 minutes. I did a history of, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, pro wrestling in Arctic Canada. And I think that that's really cool because there's a group right now above the Arctic Circle in Nunavik in Arctic Canada that they're the first full-time pro wrestling group up there. They're the first champion above the Arctic Circle, first women's match above the Arctic Circle. They've done a lot of cool stuff, and I touch on them, and they're 100% Inuit owned company, and they talk a lot about their culture and all of that, and I think it's definitely worth checking out for some people that are interested in cool stories going on in wrestling right now.
And that's crazy to hear any first in Canada's at this point, because it has such a rich history of pro wrestling. Right, yeah. Well, they really had to go all the way above the Arctic Circle to get there, but yeah, it's awesome. They were they've held shows in a city that's on the coast of the Arctic Ocean, which just that sounds crazy. Right. All right, and I will put a solo link to that a video in the description of the video below, awesome. Both in YouTube and Castbox for anybody that hasn't seen it, wants to see it, wants to re-see it after this interview. Cool, thank you. I appreciate that. Absolutely. And since we are nearing the conclusion of this interview, we are wrestling with the 8 questions of doom. This is our speed round, our bonus round, the round where we see who you really are. Are you ready? Sure. Greatest wrestler of all time. Terry Funk. Worst wrestler. Oh man, Sable. You're booking the main event of WrestleMania for the World Championship. Who are the 2 combatants? Do they have to be in WWE, or can be anyone? Anyone, anywhere, of any time. All right, I'm going to do Cody and Kenny again, but this time for the title. Okay. If you could come out to anyone's entrance music, past or present, who would it be? I liked Rob Van Dam when he had Walk. I thought that was cool. Finish the sentence. Actually, can I? Huh? I'm sorry. I want to go back. I have a second one. Okay. Malachi Black's current singles song, Ogun Troost, it's called. I think that song is awesome. Okay. Finish the sentence. Kayfabe is...
Still alive in Africa.
We would have also accepted taste great on toast. Squash. Vegetable or fruit?
Oof. I think it's a fruit.
It is indeed a fruit.
Nice.
Yes, it has seeds. Tomato logic. New Japan wrestler Tai Chi. His ring gear gets smaller every year, revealing more of himself to the world. My question, what is the appropriate trunks to butt cheek ratio for ring gear?
I think you need at least 60% trunks to 40% butt cheek. At least.
Okay. And the last question, the main event, the thing everybody wants to know. Have you ever had a conversation with a stranger in a supermarket about Darby Allin?
No, I haven't. Not about Darby Allin. I have had a conversation in a mall with a stranger about Macho Man Randy Savage, but not Darby in a supermarket.
And that is the correct answer. And that will conclude this interview. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me.
Oh yeah, I had a blast. This is one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. I loved some of like the deep stuff that you brought up. Like the research was awesome. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate that. I try to make it interesting for our guest.
Oh, for sure.
And once again, where can we find all things WrestleMaps on social media?
Yeah, Instagram and X, you can find me at WrestleMap. Facebook is facebook.com/WrestleMap. YouTube is youtube.com/@WrestleMap. And then there's, of course, WrestleMap.com. That's where you can find the World Pro Wrestling map. I have links to like all our videos up there. There's also just like a text news site. The map is available in like text form as a spreadsheet as well, and I'm always adding to it. I was actually working on it before I came on. Yeah, I think that's all social media.
Merchandise?
I do have, there's like a WrestleMap shirt. Yeah, that's available on WrestleMap.com. There is a little merchandise section, and there's a couple wrestlers that have shirts through there who I think would definitely appreciate you buying their stuff. We also have a Discord, too, if you want to join up on that. There's a link through the WrestleMap website, and we have people from around the world in there. It's pretty cool.
Okay. And you don't even have to type it into your Google machines. All of the links to all his social media will be in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and CastBox. Simply click the link. A new tab will appear on whatever device you are on. You have no excuse. Give him a damn follow and buy a damn shirt.
Yeah.
Of course, thank you for listening. If you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, comment, both on YouTube and CastBox. This was sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. Thank you for joining us for 300 interviews. This is our 300th.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's awesome.
Looking forward to doing another 300. But until we get to 600, join us tomorrow for a new incredible interview, and join us every Tuesday and Wednesday for new incredible interviews. Follow the show at Wrestling with E, both on X, Thread, and Instagram for information on who we're interviewing, when we're interviewing them, links to those interviews, and so much more. Follow me personally at JamesJ993. Alright, Brian, when I say wrestling with, you say entertainment, okay?
Okay.
For our very special guest, Bryan Anderson, Coleco Yacht, Scooter Dust, I'm James J, and this has been Wrestling with
Entertainment.
Hey folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show, support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.